time flies when you're having fun. Welcome into the very last episode of Women's Sports Update this school year. I'm Cadence Kilhoff alongside Colin Smith, and we're going to talk a lot about this WNBA draft that happened a little over a week ago.
Yeah, we're getting right into the WNBA draft. As the school year winds down, I personally am a big fan of mock drafts, so anything draft related, it gets me fired up. It's one of my favorite things to talk about.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
And this was a huge draft. Dallas Wings making a big splash at number 1.
Oh, you know it had to be AZ Fudd. There was really no other right option for this pick.
Yeah, and AZ Fudd, what I love about her is we've seen her as the number 2 option at UConn and the number 1 option. And this year as a senior and a fifth-year senior, really just stepping up into that role. We saw how great she was, averaging 17.3 points a game, just really elevating her stance in that role. And now she reunites with her old teammate Paige Beckers, and I'm really interested to see how her confidence as the number 1 player at UConn will contribute as she goes back to her former counterpart in Paige Beckers, and how she can really combine that knowledge of knowing how to be the star of a team but also be the number 2 option. I think just all around she's just going to be really well-rounded because of the 5 years of college experience that she has.
Yeah, and I was even going to say you can't talk about AZ Fudd getting drafted to the Dallas Wings without mentioning Paige Beckers at least 1 or 2 times, because together at UConn, they were a unit, and they both went through ACL tear surgery. They both kind of built themselves back up together, and obviously they are in a relationship, which really also boosts that chemistry. And on top of that, I was a little nervous a few months prior to the draft because I was wondering if AZ Fudd would even be a good fit for the Wings, because they didn't really have a distinct big, and I really thought that maybe Awafam Thiam would have been a good option for Dallas, but I'm glad that they re-signed some of their other bigs so that AZ could be that number 1 pick.
And with that, we head over to the number 2 pick, Olivia Miles from TCU to the Minnesota Lynx. She was the Big 12 Player of the Year. Obviously, she had the 4 great years at Notre Dame, uses that transfer portal, grad year, heads to TCU, finds herself as the number 2 pick.
That was a really great choice that Olivia Miles made to move to TCU, and you haven't seen many players do this yet, but now that transfer portal options are ramping up more and more each season, we're going to be seeing a lot more players kind of start at maybe a bigger school and then switch to a smaller school and build the program up to an even higher rate. And that's exactly what Olivia Miles did, and now she's the number 2 pick.
And what I love about the transfer to TCU is that was the most minutes she averaged in her career. She was a great starter for Notre Dame, started a ton of games there, but it was her 5th year at TCU, over 35 minutes a game. That was the most across her career, so that really great experience. And like you said, using that portal to kind of even just develop yourself into a better player and bring up kind of that smaller school, like Notre Dame, obviously great name in women's college basketball, but really helping TCU be a great program. Thought it was a really smart decision for her as well.
But about the actual draft, I don't know about you, I'm not really sure how well Olivia Miles fits into the Minnesota Lynx, because they already have so many other guards that are such a big part of the Lynx. I don't know how well Olivia Miles can go into that.
And I agree with you 100% on that. While you might be guard heavy, I'm always a big proponent of taking the best player available. When you see the Big 12 Player of the Year, that's an accolade that I love to see, and I think is something that can elevate your team. If you're picking at the number 2 pick, it's for a reason, so you take the best player available, in my opinion.
Well, what about Courtney Williams? What about Kayla McBride? I mean, Olivia Miles, she loves to have the ball in her hands. Even after she got drafted, she did the interview with Holly Rowe and legit straight came out and said, I just have that basketball IQ. I know what I want to do when the ball is in my hands, and that's why I'm going to be a great pick for the Lynx. She said the same thing before the draft. In case she got drafted to the Dallas Wings, she said that her and Paige Beckers would be a good pair. I strongly disagree. Olivia Miles is that kind of guard that she can do all of the work for the guards. Really, all you need are just strong shooters by Olivia Miles' side. She can handle everything else from there.
I love the confidence personally. It's going to be really interesting how it plays out on the court for sure.
Oh yeah, definitely. But the number 3 pick, I also was a little bit unsure about. Awafam Thiam, I'm not saying she's a bad player. She played professionally in Spain prior to this. She's only 19 years old, but she got drafted to the Seattle Storm.
And you talk about the international side and you're kind of unsure about it. It's just really a big question mark because we watch a lot of women's college basketball, and going to the Seattle Storm, she only had 7 points a game in the international side for Valencia Basketball Club. But it's the size for me. Like, she's kind of that in-between forward center that could really, be impactful. We talk about kind of the modern game of basketball, just having a really dynamic wing. So if she can kind of have that wing and center position, really athletic, really good. I think a lot of high upside, as much as you kind of makes you nervous right now.
I also feel like you need a veteran big on this team. And there is a player that was drafted last season to the Storm, Dominique Malonga. She was also drafted at 19 years old. She could dunk whenever she was drafted, and that's obviously a big deal in the WNBA. And she played an unrivaled this offseason. She did a pretty good job. She's slowly building herself up to become a strong WNBA presence. But you can't really do much at 19 years old, in my opinion. You need time to adjust to the league, and you need time to become a bigger and stronger player. And Awafam Tiam needs that time. It's just going to be competition with her and Awafam Tiam. The Seattle Storm is here to win a championship, not to develop underage players.
While they do want to win a championship, I think that bringing in a young core and kind of having them compete it out. And Awafam Tiam is 19, younger than me. There's no reason that you can't kind of give her the time. While you don't want to do that with the number 3 pick always, I think that there's a lot of high potential upside, which I see why you would want to build on it. But like you said, if you want to compete, it's difficult to have 2 really young bigs.
So I have to ask, because you thought that Olivia Miles going to the Minnesota Lynx wasn't that big of a deal because of the guard situation, that I thought there was already an overload there. But what about the key players like Skylar Diggins-Smith and Brittany Sykes that were guards for the Storm that just left last season? Don't you think that maybe the Lynx and the Storm should have swapped draft picks there?
Potentially. I mean, if you're the Lynx, are you getting on the phone trying to maybe drop back a few picks because Miles is on the board and you're guard heavy? They elected not to, but maybe collect draft capital for future times because, like you said, so guard heavy. Olivia Miles, best player on the board. Maybe you should be in the front office making the picks. I don't really know.
I'm telling you, I definitely should. I feel like the Lynx actually, instead of Olivia Miles, should have taken Lauren Betts, who actually was the number 4 pick, was sent over to the Washington Mystics, and she played for the reigning national champions, UCLA.
Well, this is my Washington Mystics. Let's go. I'm really excited. They're redoing the arena, which is going to be a fantastic part for them. But Lauren Betts, when I think of her, I think of another Washington, D.C. legend. I see Elena Delle Donne, another big player. She's 6'7". That like, what a frame for the WNBA to be coming in. She averaged 9.3 rebounds a game this past year, and the Washington Mystics were 3rd to last in rebounding stats. I mean, that's just a win-win move for me and my Washington Mystics. You struggle in the rebounding category, you get one of the best rebounders in the country in Lauren Betts, and I see shades of Elena Delle Donne already for her.
And staying on that defensive talk, last season, the Mystics were 3rd in the WNBA in points allowed per game, and Lauren Betts is known for just guarding the rim with her life. She is such a blocking unit. She is a brick wall in the post. She was a great pick for the Mystics, in my opinion.
2.8 blocks this year, almost 3 blocks. That's almost unheard of. Super excited about her being a really fantastic anchor down in Washington, D.C.
I'm also super excited because her teammate, Gabriela Jaquez, was drafted right after her, and I was really happy that she was drafted so early on. I was expecting her to be a pick maybe in the teens, but she was drafted to the Chicago Sky as the number 5 pick.
And you talk about how she kind of maybe rose the draft boards. I think the March Madness campaign just absolutely skyrocketed her through. She really took the nation by storm. Gabriela Jaquez, I love the Jaquez family. I love the way that her brother plays for the Miami Heat when he played at UCLA as well. They play really gritty. They rebound. They play fantastic defense. And what I love about this is it's that classic March Madness story of just rising through the draft ranks, and really capturing the hearts of America. And it pays off having a fantastic playoffs. Leads her to the number 5 pick, and congratulations to her.
Well, funnily enough, she didn't even really have any D1 offers, but then she decided to join the same AAU program that players like Cameron Brink and Sabrina Ionescu played at when they were in high school, and she would fly once a month to go play for this AAU team, and that's where UCLA saw her, and that's how she figured out she wanted to play there. And actually, when she was a kid, she wrote down on a piece of paper, "Someday I am going to play basketball at UCLA." So it's really just a full circle moment for Gabriela, and I'm really happy for her.
Not only playing basketball at UCLA, but bringing the ultimate national championship to the Bruins. Just a great story. And the flying once a month, it goes back. The Jaquez family, they're gritty.
Yeah.
That's a true basketball family. Like I saw two siblings to just look out for the rest of their career.
I don't
Absolutely.
really watch the NBA, but I'm sure you do. So tell me, does her brother have kind of the energy and the defensive mindset that she has?
He's a total energy guy.
Because all she does is hustle.
This guy, Jaime Jaquez, all he does is hustle. He puts his head down, really gets to work, fantastic defender, gets, dirty in the post, shifty and speedy. They play a very similar style. Watched a lot of UCLA this year, women's basketball, great run in March Madness, and I was like, man, of course they're siblings. They play a very similar style, and I think it's going to pay off for her in the WNBA. The Chicago Sky, who made some noise in the offseason, and maybe they just have their new front woman, new star.
Sometimes you just need a little rookie spark to get things going, in my opinion. But Colin, I have to ask, we went through the first 5 draft picks. Give me a player that you think was drafted late but will be a great addition to a team.
Yeah, I'm going to Sarah Williams, the 33rd overall pick, 3rd round, out of UConn. She goes Connecticut Sun, then Portland Fire, gets traded on draft night. So she's out of UConn, but I really want to shine back to her time at Wisconsin. She spent 3 previous seasons at Wisconsin, goes to the Huskies for a 4th year, which the stats weren't the same when she went to UConn, but that happens when you go to a great team and are surrounded by great players. And
you're the number 1 pick.
Like the number 1 pick, exactly.
Back-to-back number 1 picks, mind you.
It's a little hard to kind of stay as kind of that best player, but she had to take a step back, which ultimately led to a great winning team. No national championship, but still a great winning team in UConn. But when we go back to her time at Wisconsin, she was an absolute star. She was a dominant two-way player. She was a 2024 Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year, was all Big Ten, all defense. And she averaged a career-high 19 points, 9 rebounds, and 2 assists during her junior year at Wisconsin, which ultimately led her to going to UConn and then getting drafted. So the steal for me is just how great she was in Wisconsin in the Big Ten, and it was almost kind of forgotten, leading her to drop to the 3rd round because at UConn the production just wasn't the same, but the numbers were there at Wisconsin. I'm really excited about her. I mean, 19 points in the Big Ten, that can't go unnoticed whatsoever.
Oh yeah, and playing for a team like UConn, the bag goes so deep. So even when a player only averages 3 or 4 points a game, they're still a really good player, in my opinion.
And when you get to have the chance to be coached by one of the greatest coaches of all time, you can't pass that up. And I really think that while the production wasn't the same, that development was probably career changing. I think can really contribute to her going to the WNBA. And I think that's why she's a steal in the 3rd round at the 33rd overall pick.
Well, I am going to go one over and go for the 34th overall pick in Rory Harmon. She averaged over 10 points per game and over 6 rebounds for Texas last season, led her team to a ton of Elite 8 appearances, and made it to the Final 4 last season. She's speedy, she's a great defender, and she will be a great choice for the Mystics.
I'm excited about it because it's my Washington Mystics kind of rebuilding into that kind of powerhouse again.
And she pairs well with Lauren Betts.
100%. And there's been so much production here in the 30s. Like, why do you think she fell this far?
I honestly think it's because there are just so many great options in this draft that sometimes these amazing players, even you saw Layla Filia. I wouldn't say that she's the cream of the crop by any means, but she did end up getting an invite to the Mystics training camp, I believe.
Yes, I believe that was the invite.
And so even then, a lot of these players are just so amazing that also amazing ones will be drafted. Won't even be drafted. You even saw Deaisha Fair got waived a few years ago.
Exactly.
And she was the 3rd leading scorer in the NCAA all time?
Which was crazy because Vegas brought her in and then almost immediately she's off the team. And I think that just shows the great talent and the great production that's in women's basketball. And that's why we get in a little bit to this expansion that's come in.
Yeah.
I think that's a huge part of this. The talent pool is growing, which is why they needed an expansion headed to Toronto.
Yeah, no, I am so glad to hear that so many teams are kind of just expanding that and adding more players, which is why I feel like Deaisha Fair might end up coming back to the WNBA. They're looking for more players each season, and I'm really glad that Sandy Brondello is the head coach of the Toronto Tempo now, because she coached the New York Liberty last season.
Yeah, for sure. I think that this expansion of the WNBA is really important, and especially expanding to that Toronto market. We've seen how successful it's been on the NBA side with the Toronto Raptors, the We the North campaign, really adopting the entire identity of Canada and all of their basketball fandom. So if they can really capture that Canadian basketball fandom, basketball is just continuing to bloom in Canada, and it's time to set the standard for young women in Canada and how they can be basketball stars. And I think that expanding Toronto just shows and opens up a great window with the expanded talent pool. This was the right time and the right place to set the standard for an entire other country to see that they can play professional women's basketball.
And not even that, they're expanding teams into other states. Even Unrivaled is starting to play games in other states. And this is just amazing for the face of women's basketball. Each year, a new team is being added. I heard Cleveland is in the mix, and I'm about a 30-minute drive from Cleveland. So you will catch me at almost every single game. I'm super excited about that. But as more and more women's basketball unravels, we have to say goodbye for the year, but we will be back next season to talk a lot more women's hoops, but right now we toss it over to Miles and Kaylin to talk about some women's lacrosse.
That was Cadence and Colin with the WNBA, and today my name's Kaylin. I'm joined by my good friend Miles, and we're talking about another Syracuse postseason team, women's lacrosse. They just ended their regular season on an unfortunate loss to Boston College, who was then number 16. The ending score was 4-7, which was Syracuse's lowest scoring game of the season. They had a 12-game winning streak that was snapped. They ended up 12-4 overall, which put them 6th in the nation, and finished 7-3 in ACC play. Even though they ended on a loss, they still have a lot to be proud of. Miles, tell us about the draft.
Yeah, so 2 days prior to that Boston College game, Syracuse women's lacrosse gathered around and they got to witness the first ever college draft for the Women's Lacrosse League, the professional league. And 2 of our own Syracuse stars got their names called on the biggest stage in women's lacrosse. In the 3rd round at pick 9 overall, midfielder Emma Muchnick was selected by the California Palms. Now get this with the stats. In her years at Syracuse, she's tallied 71 goals and 21 assists. Not only that, but she's caused 25 turnovers as well as 57 ground balls. Now, if she was a defender, these would be normal stats, a little lackluster depending on the defender. But this is a midfielder putting up these numbers, which is insane. And in the next round, at round 4, pick 16, defender Coco Van Diver was selected by the California Palms. So 2 Syracuse players who play in the Empire State now travel 3,000 miles to go play in the Golden State. Professional lacrosse is going to be orange in no time soon. And as well as Coco Van Diver being selected, she's also been named to one of the most prestigious college lacrosse awards, along with 2 other fellow orange players. You want to tell us about that, Kaylin?
Yeah, so in the most recent update of the Tewaaraton watch list, we have 3 women's lacrosse players, which is tied 2nd for most for any school in the nation. Starting off, we have defender Coco Van Diver. She is a Syracuse career leader in caused turnovers with 114, 40 of those coming from this season, and that puts her at 13th in the nation. She also has 25 ground balls. Also on the defensive end, we have goalie Dan Guyette. She has just over 7 saves per game average, which is tied for 2nd best in the nation, and that is top in the ACC. She also was named ACC Defensive Player of the Week twice. She has just below a 500 save percentage, and overall she has 98 saves. Wow. On the other end of the field, we have attacker Molly Guzik. Molly Guzik put up 46 points this season, 36 coming from goals, 10 coming from assists, which is the highest on the orange team. She scored in 14 of the 15 games that they played this season. Now that the season is over, it is sad, but we also have a lot to look forward to. What else is going on, Miles?
Yeah, with the end of the regular season, spring slowly starting to shift to summer, starting to get some warmer weather. Yeah, it's Syracuse, so it's still pretty cold. But now comes ACC tournament play. By the time you guys are watching this, the first round will have already been completed. But after an amazing 12-4 season and Reggie Thorpe's first year coaching the Orange squad, they've earned the 4th seed in the Atlantic Coast Conference, and they get the right to play against 5th-seeded Virginia. Now, this is the 2nd time the Cuse have faced the Who's. Back in the middle of March, they narrowly survived a game, winning 6-5 against Virginia. Now, at the end of that game, it was a couple seconds left on the clock. It was that 6-5 score, and the pass, which could have been to the assist to the game-tying goal, batted down by defender Casey Benoit, a junior, which helped extend the win streak to 7 at the time. Now, speaking of the lucky number 7, 7 years ago was the last time that SU faced Virginia in the ACC tournament. Back in 2019, The 'Cuse beat the Who's 12-9 in that game. But with ACC tournament play, anything is possible. And with the game time at 2 o'clock on Wednesday, you guys will have already seen the score, but hopefully Syracuse can get back in the win column and advance in the ACC tournament.
This has been Women's Sports Update on OTN, and we'll see you in the fall.